Please adhere to YouTube's selected guidelines before viewing the content of this video. I do not encourage or condone any products, actions, or behaviors shown in this video. All videos are produced in a safe, professional, and controlled environment. Please do not attempt to replicate any actions performed during the video. All actions are performed by professionals.
Alrighty, so how much did I spend in Japan as a cigarette smoker? That's exactly what I'm going to be answering in today's video by doing a full cost breakdown of my entire trip. I flew into Tokyo from the east coast of the United States in late January and then left in early March, staying for a total of 5 weeks in 4 different areas in Japan. Those areas were Tokyo, Hakuba, Kyoto, and Osaka. Some of the costs in this video are estimated. I do want to admit I don't have receipts for everything, but some costs are also exact because I do have receipts for those costs. So do take what I say in this video with a slight grain of salt kind of thing. A lot of the stuff in this video was more estimated than not, I will admit. But before I go ahead and actually hop into the costs and everything like that kind of thing, I want to go down the categories for the, well, costs and whatnot. So there are 8 different cost categories for this little bit of a trip cost breakdown. The first of which being the flight, the second of which being accommodations, hotels, Airbnbs, etc. The third of which being transportation within Japan, taking the bullet train, a flight from Osaka to Tokyo, and just going around town and everything like that kind of thing, that sort of transportation. And then we have number 4, my phone costs, mainly just SIM cards kind of thing. And then number 5, we have food. And then number 6, we have like entrance fees to touristy stuff and everything like that kind of thing. And then number 7, we have souvenirs and like other stuff I just purchased in Japan for myself. And then number 8, the final cost category for this entire breakdown is cigarettes and other tobacco products. But let's go ahead and hop into the first category, which was my flight to Japan. So this was the most costly thing I spent going to Japan kind of thing. Nothing can even really compare in all honesty. This was the most expensive thing for me going to Japan. My round trip flight from the east coast of the United States to Japan cost me $1,338. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That's like almost half as much as I've spent on most of the vehicles I've ever owned on one flight. I am going like halfway around the world, so it makes sense, but still, $1,338. I spent a decent amount of money on my flight, that is for sure. That was the biggest cost for me going to Japan. Next up, we have accommodations though. So, when I first got to Japan, I spent 2 nights in a hotel in Tokyo with a friend, spending a total of $88. It would have been double, but I was with a friend, so thankfully I didn't have to spend, what is that, $88 double, that's $160, $168, $176. Thankfully I didn't have to spend $176 on 2 nights in a hotel. Thankfully it was only $88, which really is not all that bad in all honesty, but as said, it would have been double if I had been there by myself. Then after staying in Tokyo, me and my friends went to Hakuba, which is like a touristy sort of like ski resort area, and we spent 3 nights at an Airbnb there. My total cost was $120. It would have literally been 4 times as much, but thankfully, once again, the cost of the Airbnb was indeed split with friends. Then after Hakuba, we went back to Tokyo for 10 nights where I spent a total of $184 on another Airbnb. And once again, it would have been 4 times as much, but thankfully it was split with friends. Then after those 10 nights, my friends headed back home, and so I was in Japan by myself for the next 3 weeks. And this is really where the main costs of like Airbnbs and stuff comes from for this trip, because I wasn't splitting it with anybody else at that point in time. So after my friends left, I then went to Kyoto, and I spent 7 nights there, totaling up to $308 for the entire week. Then after Kyoto, I rode the train to Osaka, spending another 7 nights there for a total of $307 at an Airbnb. And then after Osaka, I took a flight back to Tokyo and stayed at another Airbnb for another 7 nights for a total of $289. So my 5-week trip total for accommodations for my trip to Japan was $1,296. That's a decent amount of money once again, but not as much as the flight. But honestly, I mean, like, I'll be frank, I mean, like, a high-end apartment in my local area costs like $1,200 to $1,500 in my local area kind of thing. $1,200 to $1,500 for a high-end apartment, and you're stuck in a lease kind of thing. These were Airbnbs that I'm staying at, not getting any discounts because I'm not staying there for over a month, and it still only totaled up to be $1,300. That's not bad at all, if I do say so myself. Cheaper than Airbnbs would have been in my local area. I really was surprised when I totaled up the amount, the costs for accommodations and everything like that kind of thing. Honestly, I was a little bit surprised at how cheap the accommodations were for what they were kind of thing. Now, I do want to acknowledge I was purposefully choosing cheap places kind of thing. I wasn't staying at super bougie hotels or nothing like that kind of thing. I tried to do my Japan trip on very much as small of a budget as I possibly could. Of course, I had money to spare and everything. I'm not going to travel to a foreign country without having money on me just in case. But either way, I did indeed try to stay at everywhere I did for as cheaply as possible, and I'm very glad I only spent $1,296. As said, in my local area, mid-range to high-end apartments, well, high-end, lower high-end to higher high-end can go anywhere from like $1,200 to like $1,500, and that's just for like a bachelor pad apartment in the downtown area kind of thing. I mean, like, I was staying at like, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I stayed at 6 different places. I really can't complain. In all honesty, really not all that bad. So now that I've covered accommodations, though, let's go ahead and move on to transportation within Japan. So when I got to Japan, I bought the JR Pass. I bought a 2-week JR Pass to be exact, so I could cut down on my costs of using the bullet train, and it certainly did work. I think if I hadn't bought the JR Pass, I would have spent somewhere around like $500 on the bullet train as a whole, but my JR Pass cost me $410. So I saved about $90 there, so I really cannot complain. And I took the bullet train 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So yeah, 5 times on the bullet train, gave me my cost back kind of thing. I really cannot complain. $410 for the 2-week JR Pass, really not too bad if I do say so myself. A lot of times though, excuse me, a lot of times, though, I couldn't use the JR Pass. The JR Pass, you can only use it at JR stations and stuff like that kind of thing. A lot of the stations I was riding around at in Tokyo were not JR stations. A lot of the trains I was taking in Tokyo were not JR trains. And when my pass ended, of course, needed to still take the train and everything like that kind of thing. I used a Suica card after my JR Pass ended, and I used the Suica card when I couldn't take the train to a specific place and it wasn't a JR train and everything like that kind of thing. So my costs using the Suica card, I don't know the exact amount for this, I will admit, just simply because I had to put cash in, and so I don't have all of the transactions and everything like that kind of thing. But if I had to guess, total for the 5 weeks I spent in Japan for train costs using the Suica card, it was probably about like $125 to $175 USD. Really not too bad at all, if I do say so myself. I think the most expensive trip I took by normal train in Japan without using my JR Pass was like $10 both ways, or sorry, $10 one way and then $10 the way back kind of thing. But I literally took the train for like an hour and 10 minutes. So really not too bad at all, if I do say so myself. I would have spent a lot more money on gas, I ain't gonna lie, y'all. Not too bad, that is for sure. And then my flight from Osaka to Tokyo cost me $56. I decided to take a flight from Osaka to Tokyo to not have to spend money on the bullet train because my GR pass had already expired at that point, but I didn't calculate it in at that point in time that I had to take the train to the airport, and the train ride to the airport was like, I want to say like $10 kind of thing, and with the $10, the 56, and then all the snacks I bought at the airport, frankly put, I would have probably spent the same amount on the bullet train and not have to deal with going through security, a plane, and dealing with having to get from the airport in Tokyo to the Airbnb I was staying at there. It would have just been a lot easier for me to take the bullet train, in all honesty, for probably just, if it was more, just slightly more kind of thing. But I went for the cheaper option, and I am honestly glad I did it, because it was a good experience, that is for sure. I didn't take any taxis or anything like that while I was in Japan, and thankfully, thankfully not, because taxis in Japan are absolutely ridiculous, and same with Ubers and everything like that kind of thing. Taking the train really is the cheapest way to go about just going around town in Japan and everything like that kind of thing. So my 5-week trip total for transportation in Japan was $641. That's very much estimated though. I know it was over $500, but I don't really, I figure maximum $700 kind of thing. I can't see myself having spent more than $700. But you know, probably round about $641. The next category we have is my phone, specifically SIM cards. Sadly, Japan does not do reloadable SIMs. Well, they do reloadable SIMs, just not for tourists. If you want a reloadable SIM, you have to be a permanent resident of Japan or just a resident of Japan in general, there for work or something like that kind of thing. You essentially have to have a card saying, hey, I'm not a tourist. Sadly, tourists cannot get reloadable SIMs. They do have SIM cards there, but they're not reloadable. So every time your SIM card runs out, you have to get a new one. And I ended up having to buy like 3 or 4 different SIM cards because I was using maps so much to find my way around in Japan that I just ended up buying a bunch of them kind of thing. I'm totaling up to be just about $90. So I bought those 3 or 4 different SIM cards for $90 total. Definitely a decent amount more than I spent on my phone plan in the United States, but I mean, like, hey, I'm in another country kind of thing. Why not, why not ball a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Why not ball a little bit, that is for sure. So yeah, $90 overall for SIM cards. Next up, we have food for the 5 weeks I spent in Japan. Now, the majority of the time, I cooked breakfast and dinner for myself, but usually for lunch, I spent $5 to $7 roundabout at the convenience store on lunch every single day. Pretty much every single day I was in Japan, I bought lunch at the convenience store. I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I just bought some onigiri, like a drink, and I think like some ham for some protein and stuff like that kind of thing. And that usually totaled up to be like about $5 to $7. Depending on which convenience store I went to. But I did also go to restaurants, and restaurants for the 5 weeks I was there, I think I spent about a total of $150. I didn't go to a lot of restaurants, I will admit. I think I went to a total of like probably 10 restaurants when I was in Japan, and most of the restaurants I went to were a lot cheaper than not. I don't think I spent over $25 on a single meal my entire time in Japan. Really, I can't complain, that is for sure. I didn't spend over $25 on a single meal. And when I was spending $25 on a single meal, I was getting like an appetizer, I got a full entree, a drink, and I also got like dessert as well kind of thing. That was the 25. I got fully loaded. It was everything but alcohol kind of thing. It was literally everything but alcohol, because alcohol at convenience stores is just insanely cheap, I ain't gonna lie. So why not just go to the convenience store and buy it instead of paying an insane amount at the restaurant? So, you know, estimated, I don't know the exact number, $150 for restaurant foods in Japan. Of course, I spent a lot of money at the convenience store on food in Japan. Estimated roundabout probably $200 if I had to guess. And then I also, of course, made breakfast and dinner for myself. So I had to pick up food at the grocery store. I usually just made eggs, chicken, and rice for breakfast and dinner. So I didn't really spend a lot of money at the grocery store. Estimated probably about $110 overall. All of the grocery stores there, as long as you're just getting like chicken, eggs, and rice kind of thing, pretty cheap stuff, I ain't gonna lie, y'all. My 5-week total for food in Japan was $460. Not bad at all, if I do say so myself. The next category we have on this little bit of a sheet of paper right here, though, is like touristy stuff and entrance fees for museums like the Tokyo Sky Tree. I went to the Postal Museum, the Tobacco and Salt Museum, and like temples and stuff like that, like Toji Temple. I had to pay to get in and everything like that kind of thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover the fees for all of the museums and other touristy spots after I actually take a sip of water, because I just realized my throat's a little bit dry right now, I ain't gonna lie, y'all. So, in the 5 weeks I was there, how much did I spend on just touristy stuff and stuff like that kind of thing? Well, I did the math, and it totaled up to be $130. Man, that is not estimated. That I actually have my receipts for all of that sort of stuff. So, $130. Not too bad at all, if I do say so myself. Not too bad. $130. I will admit the main fee, for the main 2 fees in there were, I want to say, the Kyoto Railway Museum and the Tokyo Sky Tree and the Kyoto Tower. Those were the main fees. The Tokyo Sky Tree was like $30 kind of thing. I think the Kyoto Railway Museum, with everything I wanted to do there, was like, I want to say $10 as a whole. And then I want to say the Kyoto Tower was, I want to say, like $10 as well kind of thing. Everything else was just like a bunch of little costs kind of thing. That's pretty much what it was. But you know, $130 for doing like a bunch of touristy stuff kind of thing, really not bad at all, if I do say so myself. Then we come on to souvenirs. So souvenirs and other stuff. Most of the souvenirs I bought were stationery and Ghibli art books. I bought like 3 Ghibli art books in Japan because I went to the Ghibli store and I saw them and I was like, oh wow, they're $20 a book. Let me get one for me and souvenirs for family family kind of thing, because my family loves Studio Ghibli. And so I got like a bunch of Studio Ghibli art books. I got 3 of them, totaling up to be like $60 kind of thing. I also bought a bunch of stationery. I like stationery myself, and so does my family, so I bought my family a bunch of stationery. I spent like $75 on stationery in Japan, and I'm not talking, I spent like, I bought like Rotorings or something like if you guys don't know what Rotoring is, Rotoring, that's like some really expensive mechanical pencils and draft pens and draft pencils and stuff like that kind of thing. That stuff's really expensive. No, this was like cheap stationery. I just bought a ton of it, I ain't gonna lie, y'all. And then I also spent like some money on thermals and stuff like that kind of thing, because it was a little bit cold in Japan, so I bought some thermals, totaling up to be about $170 for the 5 weeks I was there. Really not too bad at all, if I do say so myself. And now we come on to the last category of the list. So, how much did I spend on cigarettes and other tobacco products in Japan as a cigarette smoker? Well, I do want to acknowledge that all of the totals that I'm going to be talking about are estimated in this category to an extent, just simply because I didn't really keep track of my tobacco costs super well, but it's closer than not. I do have faith. So, cigarettes in total, the 5 weeks I was there, I want to say I spent $125. That includes the cigarettes I also brought back to the States with me as well. So that's like, I want to say like 32 packs of cigarettes as a whole. $125, that's not bad at all, if I do say so myself. Definitely a lot cheaper than 32 packs of cigarettes would have been in the States, that is for sure. I also bought 3 heat not burn devices, IQOS Glow and Plume X, excuse me. And then I also bought these sticks, the heat not burn cigarettes to go along with them, totaling up to be $63. I also bought a Kisru pipe, and I also bought some Kazami tobacco as well, totaling up to be $24. And then I also bought 2 ashtrays, totaling up to $11. And then I bought some cigars as well. I bought 1 normal cigar and then a pack of backwoods as well, and that was $9 total. So my total tobacco cost, my total cigarette and tobacco cost for my 5 weeks in Japan was $232. Really not too bad, if I do say so myself. And if I had bought that much stuff in the States, it definitely would have been a significant amount more, I ain't gonna lie, y'all. So, what is my total cost for the entire 5-week Japan trip, though? Well, the total cost was $4,357. $4,357, that's a lot of money. That's more than I've ever spent on a car. It's a lot of money. That is very much partly estimated, though. Some of the numbers are exact, some of them are not, of course. It was probably more like $4,400 to $4,500 if I had to guess, but really, in all honesty, not too bad for 5 weeks in a foreign country halfway around the world. And it's a country, Japan is not known as a country that's, no, it's not known for being super cheap to stay in kind of thing. It's not known for being super expensive, but it's not known for being like super cheap kind of thing either. So really, like $4,400 to $4,500, really not too bad, if I do say so myself. And literally like 1/4 of the cost to be there was the flight. If I had already been in the area in another country and I flew there for like $200, my costs would have been a lot lower, and I could have definitely spent less money on souvenirs. I could have definitely spent less money on entrance fees. And now that I've been to Japan once, if I travel again, a lot of the stuff I spent entry fees on, I don't really care to go again kind of thing. I don't really care to go again because I've already done it once. Why? I don't need to do it again kind of thing. A lot of the stuff I want to do in Japan now really has to do with just like hiking and stuff like that kind of thing. It's stuff that's free to go to. So, I mean, like, in all honesty, I really do think I could cut down my costs by a pretty significant portion, even with the flight there kind of thing. I think I could have probably spent like a solid $500 less if I really tried. I could have probably spent like $3,800, $3,900 on the entire trip if I had really tried. But I was trying to ball out a little bit in Japan, I will admit. I was trying to ball out a little bit. So, I mean, like, I had to flex a little bit kind of thing. I had to spend some money, you know what I'm saying? I had to ball. I had to let everybody know that, you know, I'd be a big baller kind of thing. But, yeah, that is how much money I spent in Japan as a cigarette smoker. Of course, I do want to acknowledge once again, a lot of the stuff I said in today's video was a little bit more of an estimation than not. A good estimation, yes. An exact estimation, no. And while I was in Japan, I did try to be more cheap than not as well. But I think that's everything I wanted to say. So as such, without further ado, I do think it's now time for me to go ahead and end this video right here. If you guys are interested in seeing my full cost breakdown on this little bit of a sheet right here and everything like that kind of thing, I'm going to post an unlisted YouTube video down below with images of both of these sheets of paper just on that unlisted video. So if you guys would just like take a look at my costs and everything like that kind of thing, just save it for your records. If you guys are planning to traveling to Japan or anything like that kind of thing and you want to get an idea of how much you need to spend without having to watch this entire video once again, just save that unlisted video, which will be in the description down below with images of these sheets of paper and everything like that kind of thing. If you guys are planning on traveling to Japan anytime in the future, I certainly do hope that this video can be helpful to you. I hope that this video can help you budget and everything like that kind of thing. And if you guys have been to Japan previously, let me know what y'all's costs were for the trip. Did you spend more than me? Did you spend less than me? I'm curious to know. And if you're willing to do a little bit of a breakdown, I'm curious to hear what it is as well. Thank you so much for watching this video where I talked about how much I spent in Japan as a cigarette smoker. I certainly hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. If you guys have enjoyed watching this video, of course, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content. I have my Instagram, my book, my merch, my P.O. box, and my second channel all in the description down below. Go check it all out. But yeah, no, thank you so much for watching, y'all. To the next one, stay safe and peace. Have a great one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know what I'm saying?